Hello there, gentle viewers, and viewers that are not so gentle and have done time in prison. There's no judgment here. Today's video is a bit of a trip down memory lane, 2014 to be precise. When the Carmilla web series was first released, came up on my Tumblr dash and captivated me forevermore. If you don't know what Carmilla is, it's a web series on YouTube which is adapted from the novella of the same name, which was released back in 1872. I've already done a review of the book. I think the book is quite romantic. It's not the greatest portrayal of homosexuality or women, but the web series is essentially a feminist retelling of this book, and it keeps the hot vampire lesbian part, so naturally it slaps. So a lot of you will already know I'm a huge fan of this series, and I used to have a huge Carmilla poster on my bedroom wall back in the day. A lot of you will remember that, rest in peace. So it's odd I've never actually sat down and reviewed this series in its entirety. You know, the series makes me feel very, very nostalgic, and I think without a shadow of a doubt, it brought the lesbian community together in a positive way, and I'm still friends with some people that I met through that fandom, and it really affected people in real life. I really do love the series, and I really love the fandom. I also had some lesbian drama with someone I met in the fandom at a Taylor Swift concert, just to make it, you know, that much more sapphic, and I hope she's not watching this video because I don't want her to watch. I don't think she watches this channel. I think she's moved on. So I'm just gonna give my overall thoughts on the web series in this video. Now, as much as I love this show, when I look at the show through a critical lens, I think it's important to give the show a lot of leeway in terms of things like production value, because I know that they didn't have the biggest budget to begin with. So I'm not going to split hairs over things that I would in shows and films that have bigger budgets behind it and things like that. So buckle up, cream puffs. Here we go. Okay, so August the 19th, 2014, the first episode of Carmilla Season 1 is uploaded to YouTube. And as a fun fact, you should know that this season was filmed on an iPhone. Oh yes, and they also managed to keep people entertained from just one camera angle, and that is not easy. We are introduced to a Silas University student named Laura Hollis, who is doing a web journalism project in her dorm room. One night, she goes out to a party with her roommate Betty, but the next morning she pulls back the bed covers where Betty usually sleeps to discover that she has gone missing. As Laura is trying to find out what has happened to her missing roommate, a new mysterious and very attractive roommate takes Betty's place. Her name is Carmilla, and oh my god, they were roommates. It's peak lesbian fantasy to have a hot vampire as your roommate next to having Jennifer Beals as your boss who can't keep her hands to herself. I shouldn't say stuff like that, but we're also introduced to Danny Lawrence, who is Laura's lit TA and also a possible romantic interest. It's obvious Laura has a bit of a crush on Danny, and so a kind of love triangle develops here. We also get introduced to Laff and Perry, who are both very highly entertaining as a duo. Perry is this kind of cleaning freak and she's very maternal, and Laff is this kind of science nerd, and Annie Briggs is an incredible actor with incredible hair. Anyway, Laura and co are kind of suspicious that Carmilla is somehow involved in these girls that are going missing from the university, and they're also suspicious that she might be a vampire. There's a kidnapping, there's some fighting, there's a possession, there's some heroic broody vampire moves, and in the end Carmilla finally gets the girl and the fan base is born. So what did I like about season 1, and ultimately why did I fall in love with this series after watching season 1? Well, there's two things in particular that are incredibly refreshing about this show. The first is that we have a nearly all-female cast who are incredibly charismatic and interesting. And not only are all the characters mostly female, they're also mostly lesbian or queer. And the second thing that is so refreshing about this series is that sexuality, at least in season 1, the sexuality side of things is just not an issue, and this really allows them to tell a story which isn't centered on sexuality drama, and instead lesbians simply exist as normal people and can get on with other things. It's incredibly well cast, especially the role of Carmilla. You really can believe that Natasha Negavalis is a vampire. Really casting 110% there. There's not one filler character. All the characters in this series are incredibly interesting and three-dimensional. And not only that, they all work incredibly well off of each other. I really do believe that the cast is the reason that so many people fell in love with this series, as well as the hot leather pants. But also for me, I just enjoyed the cast so much that there was just no looking back. And of course, that Holstein chemistry, well, that didn't hurt, but we'll get to that later. The writing in season 1 is a very nice blend of kind of punchy, comedic, thoughtful, and a little wacky, with a lot of nerdy references. However, one thing you must learn to do very early on in this series is not question anything in the writing or the casual supernatural elements that are just chucked into the mix. So I'd say for season 1, episodes 16, 17 and 36 are probably the best episodes out of the first season. And this is simply because of the Holstein chemistry, which is really, really something else. It's mind-blowing. Natasha and Elise really made this show what it was. It really does rest on their chemistry. Also, both actors are openly queer women, so I think that did help a lot, but also there just may have been a real life attraction there. I mean, I'm not going to go down that road, but you know, they were both and are both queer, so you know, just saying. And both actors said that they felt something immediately between them, you know, even if it was just professionally, they could just tell straight off the bat. And the apathetic vampire and the preppy lit student is a perfect combination on so many levels. It's very entertaining to watch, and it was wielded really well in season 1. You know, so I'll always have a soft spot for season 1. In my opinion, writing wise, it was the best season. There's a nice mix of kind of comedy and drama. The cast work really well together. I hesitate to say season 1 is my favourite season because I think it's a joint between season 1 and season 3. And I can't quite make up my mind which one I like more. And what I prefer about season 1 is the storyline is also fairly easy to follow at this stage compared to what comes next. And finally, a fact about season 1 that not everybody may know is that You by Kotex, who sponsored the show, initially didn't want to let Laura and Carmilla kiss in the finale. They wanted to remove the physical intimacy and leave their relationship open to interpretation. So the show's creators actually had to fight to get the kiss shown on the web series, and let's just say it's a good job that they did. Okay, so moving on to the Christmas special, also known as the Murder Her for Christmas episode. Also very magical because we get more than one camera angle, which is very generous. So the gang are now hauled up in a diner after fleeing Silas University. There's an angry mob outside because Carmilla tried to bite the town's mayor. I forget that this show is supposed to be set in Styria, but it is. Anyway, pretty soon an Austrian Mama Claus type pops up with a questionable accent and starts being very creepy. Laura soon realizes that Mama Claus turns people into gingerbread men and then eats them, prompting her to ask Carmilla to murder her for Christmas. And that's how we wish each other a happy holidays in the fandom. I really liked the Christmas special. I thought Carmilla and Laura still contained a lot of that antagonistic yet magnetic relationship that we saw in season 1. Perry and Laugh also make excellent side characters in this episode, and honestly I could have watched another 30 episodes of them all hauled up in this diner together, because really those 4 characters are what works best in this series. Now, season 2 is the most controversial of all the seasons of Carmilla. I don't hate season 2, I don't, but I know a lot of the fandom are not keen on season 2, and I understand why. In a nutshell, a lot happens in season 2. The gang are now hauled up in some swish new digs, which may or may not have belonged to the evil Dean. The same Dean who decides to possess Perry. Meanwhile, Laura is investigating some murders of the newspaper staff. Carmilla's sister arrives on the scene, and we meet Vordenberg, who isn't the kindly old man that he seems. Like I said, a lot happens this season. A lot happens. Now, I still find season 2 very watchable. I still enjoy it. But here are where the criticisms start to creep in, and there are a few. Even though I take the show with a pinch of salt, there's definitely, room for criticism in season 2. To be honest, most of it revolves around the writing and the direction. So I'll start with the positives before I start kind of criticizing it. I really loved the additions of the characters of Mel and Matty in season 2. I thought they brought a lot to the table. Both of them are incredibly entertaining and charismatic, very well cast again, and I think they genuinely made really good additions to the show. Mel makes me laugh a lot, and it was also nice to see some kind of diversity in the cast as well. We also get some very affectionate Holstein moments in season 2, which are enjoyable to watch. And another thing I love about season 2 is the house that they shot the season in. The interior is gorgeous, and it perfectly suited the show. The first few episodes of season 2 are actually pretty good. And another thing that goes in its plus is the quality is slightly better than the first season. I guess their budget was slightly increased, and you can tell. The quality never really bothered me in the first place, but it is nice to see Holstein kisses in high definition. It is. Okay, so on to my criticisms. Now, Jordan said that she'd never written a sequel for anything, and she hadn't written season 1 of Carmilla expecting there to be a sequel. So she wasn't expecting there to be a season 2 or a season 3. So I do feel like this explains some of the writing in season 2. Firstly, I just felt like the narrative was so much harder to follow in season 2. I really lost track of what was happening exactly. Another area where season 2 suffered was it really lacked the comedy that the first season had to kind of balance out the kind of drama and stuff. Season 2 was just very heavy and very angst-filled without that comic relief. We hadn't really gotten to explore Laura and Carmilla's relationship yet, and there were problems and there was angst already starting up in season 2. And another thing which I didn't like about season 2 was the dense monologues, which were very hard to kind of concentrate on, and it kind of interfered with the more free-flowing aspect that the first season had. It was also a case of the second season focusing too much on the side characters as opposed to Laura and Carmilla. This is a mistake because when all is said and done, people are really watching for Laura and Carmilla, and whilst the side characters are needed, they shouldn't really be the focus. The first season worked so well because Laura and Carmilla were balanced out by the side characters, but they weren't overtaken by them. The fight scenes were also very amateur. This, of course, is probably to do with the budget. I felt like season 2 bit off more than it could chew with the fight scenes, because they didn't have the budget or the training to really back it up and make it look good on screen. Those kind of scenes work in something like Buffy the Vampire Slayer because Buffy the Vampire Slayer has a budget, it has body doubles, different camera angles, so applying a fight scene to a web series with one camera angle and a tight budget was always going to be quite risky. So as I say, I don't hate season 2. I know that I've maybe split hairs with season 2, but overall, those are just my honest thoughts. It is my least favourite season out of all of the seasons of Carmilla, but I honestly don't hate it. I don't hate it. I think some of it, especially the first few episodes, are watchable. And yeah, I don't hate it, but those are my critiques. I am going to mention season 0 here, not in a great amount of detail, because if I'm honest with you, I don't really count season 0 as a proper season. I don't even really count it as canon, to be honest. There's not much discourse about season 0 online. It was largely glossed over and forgotten about. But anyway, season 0 essentially launches straight off of season 2, and we find Carmilla and Laura in the library that they're hiding out in, and they find some old VHS tapes and they watch these VHS tapes, and that's essentially what season 0 is. The VHS tapes contain footage of a pre-season 1 Perry, Mel and Carmilla, making season 0 a kind of prequel and giving us a little bit of backstory on these 3 characters. Season 0 is more or less a more obvious plug or a more obvious advertisement of the Carmilla sponsor, You by Kotex, which is fine. You know, Carmilla costs money to make. We kind of forget that because we watch it for free, but it would have cost a lot of money to make this web series. But the advertisement and the marketing was so transparent and obvious, it just became quite distracting, and it was hard to kind of take the season very seriously because you just knew it was there to kind of plug You by Kotex. The season also came out straight after season 2 was released, which I felt was a lot of overkill at the time. You know, season 2 had been so hyped up that releasing another season directly after season 2 was just a bit much. And we got a couple of Holstein moments, but essentially the show focused on Perry, Mel and Carmilla without Laura, without Laugh. And you know, I love Mel, Perry and Carmilla, but it doesn't work without Laura, and it doesn't even really work without Laugh, if I'm honest. Laura and Carmilla are the center of the show, and when you take away even just one of them, it impacts the show in a negative way. All of this being said, I did go back and rewatch season 0. It's a bit better than I remembered. It's not completely unwatchable, and Annie does a fantastic job as usual, but I just don't feel like it fits in with the other seasons, even as a prequel, and so I largely discard it. And I don't really count it as an official season. So moving on. Okay, so season 3. This is my favourite season. It's my dream to be trapped in a library with a lesbian vampire. Literally. A fun fact about season 3 is it's the only season where they built a set from scratch to film in. It's cool and it looks really good. I think the set looks good. So yes, this season we have Laugh, Laura and Carmilla trapped in a sentient library trying to stay safe from the Dean. Anyway, things have very much escalated from season 2, and now the Dean is trying to open the gates of hell and end the world as we know it, just for kicks. And it's up to Laugh, Laura and Carmilla to save the day. What I love about season 3 is it really taps into the magic of season 1. It does. There was a nice balance of both comedy and drama, and there's that old familiar Holstein tension between the two, which is just so delicious to watch. Also the kisses. There were a lot of kisses. It did make up for everything. Jesus is real and does love lesbians. I have quite the crush on alt Carmilla. I do. I would wife her. She's very cute and clingy, and I think that's cute. I like that. We also meet Laura's dad in this series, and I think he made a good addition. He was a good fit. He was very believable as Laura's father as well. And again, Annie really went above and beyond acting-wise in this series. She really gives it everything she's got, and yeah. Respect. Everything improved in season 3. The writing improved, the character development improved, the storyline and the narrative became more succinct, which I really appreciated, and even the fight scenes were better in season 3. Like, I don't think there's anything that didn't get better. Now, the very end of season 3, the finale, well, Laura gets her heart ripped out and then continues giving a monologue instead of just dying, which, as I say, don't ask questions about the writing, so I won't ask questions about that. She also kisses Carmilla back when she's supposed to be dead, but I can't blame her for that. I mean, who wouldn't defy death if a hot lesbian vampire was kissing them? I know I would. Yeah, the ending of season 3 is rather interesting, but overall, you know, I like this season. I like this season a lot. And it's sadly the last season of Carmilla that we've had. You know, we get a happy Holstein ending. It was much needed, much appreciated. And Carmilla gets her life back. Now, I much prefer Carmilla as a vampire, but as long as Laura and Carmilla are together, I mean, hey. I'll just touch briefly on the movie. I have done a separate review of the movie on this channel, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but the movie is absolutely fantastic. My favourite thing about the movie is the very kind of dark, gothic elements that it taps into. And I would have loved them to have done a kind of old school, true to life adaptation of the novel, minus the kind of ending of the novel. They could just change the ending up to have made it like a happy romantic ending between Laura and Carmilla. I've rewatched the movie a lot. It's one of my go-to comfort movies because everything about it is just amazing. The only thing I don't love about the movie, and I am just gonna say what I think, I just didn't love the costume design so much. I felt like it kind of cheapened the movie a little bit. So I didn't love the costume design in the film. Just wouldn't it be cool if we had like a lesbian version of Interview with the Vampire? Like Anne Rice needs to write a lesbian vampire novel if she hasn't already. Do you know Stevie Nicks wrote a song about Anne Rice? And I enjoy it very much. Ultimately, I love this web series. I love the movie. It will always have a special place in my heart. And the Carmilla fandom is the best fandom I've ever been a part of. It's so rare that lesbians get this kind of content where both the actors and the creators care so much about both the content that they're making, but also the community who they're making the content for. The show is just special on so many levels, and that's why it's so beloved. Okay guys, thanks for watching this very lengthy review. If you've seen the web series, let me know your own thoughts in the comments. Let me know what your favourite season was. Did you enjoy the movie? Did you particularly enjoy that one scene? You know what I mean. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for instant disappointment, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.